If your wood kitchen cabinets are looking greasy, grimy, or maybe they just look a little dull, let me show you the best way to clean that up. The first thing to do is give your cabinets a really good dust. Now I like to recommend starting at the top and dusting your way down to the floor. That way you work all the dust to the floor and just don't make a bigger mess or get something dirty that you just dusted. My go-to duster for this job is just a simple Swiffer. They work great, they're compact and just easy to use, but something to always keep in mind, especially if you're using a new one, is usually they'll come really flat and compact like this, so always give it a quick spin like so, and then I like to kind of like hit it on my hand just to kind of fluff it up a little bit. Now the reason this is so important is because if we just come through right away with our wet cleaners and start cleaning, all that dry debris, dust, and hair that's on the surface there will get wet. And unfortunately, that can be super hard to remove once it's wet, especially if you have like dogs or pets in the house. That hair really likes to cling once it's damp. So by going through and giving everything a really good dust, you prevent this and you really set your cleanup for success. Depending on how your cabinets are designed and the style, many times they'll have a ledge and some grooves and things, and those can be a little challenging to get a Swiffer in there and just remove all the dry debris. So one pro tip that I like to recommend is just grab your vacuum with a nice brush attachment here. That way it's nice and gentle and you're not gonna scratch anything. And just come through and just give those a really good vacuum. That way, again, we're ensuring that we're removing as much of that dry dust and debris as possible before we get things wet. So now that our cabinets are nice and dusted, it's time to mix up our cleaner. Now for this, I like to recommend using Murphy oil. This does a great job to cut through all the grease and grime and things, but when you mix it up, what I like to do is always add about a gallon or so of warm water to a bucket and then about a capful only. The reason being is Murphy's oil is extremely concentrated, and if you do use too much of it, it kind of dries sticky then, and it tracks more dirt over time, and your cabinets will get dirty faster and just be so much harder to clean in the future. So whenever you're mixing up Murphy's oil, just kind of keep in the back of your head, less is more. For the cleaning process, I like to use my 3-towel system, and it's super simple once you get the hang of it, and before you know it, you'll be using it all over the house when you're cleaning. But what we're gonna do is take our first towel and dip that into the cleaning solution bucket and make sure to wring it out really well. We don't want this to be super wet because too much moisture on wood is never a good idea and it could potentially cause damage. Now take that towel, clean the cabinet really well. Again, start top to bottom there. And I like to usually clean my cabinets kind of one at a time. That way I'm being as efficient as possible and not forgetting anything. Now, once that's nice and clean, then we're gonna go through and grab our second towel. This towel is just gonna be dipped in a bucket with some warm water, and this towel is there to rinse the surface. Again, wring it out really well, but the goal here is to remove not only the dirt and grime that's on the cabinets, but also remove any cleaning residue that might be there, because again, if we leave that behind, it's going to dry sticky and attract more dirt. Now, once you're done with that, really the last towel is the secret sauce. And in my experience, many people skip this step or don't even do it at all. And that is just a clean, dry microfiber towel to dry and buff the surface. There's a few reasons why this last towel is so important, especially when it comes to cleaning our wood cabinets. The first is we want to always get them as dry as possible. I've kind of mentioned this a few times, but I don't like to introduce a ton of moisture to the wood, but we obviously need a little bit to clean. So by using that last towel to get them dry as quickly as possible is going to help prevent damage. Now the last thing is if you were to just let them air dry, unfortunately you're gonna get a ton of streaks and watermarks. So by giving them a quick dry and buff, you completely prevent this, level up your clean, and your cabinets look amazing. Now I do like to recommend using microfiber towels for this job just because I feel like they clean the best. And if you need to upgrade yours, or maybe you don't have any, definitely check out my website, cleanthatUp.com. You can get your very own Clean That Up towels and be cleaning like a pro. Sometimes you might run across an area, depending on how dirty your cabinets are, where the cleaning towel just isn't cutting through the buildup. Now there's a few things I recommend to really step up our scrubbing power here to cut through that. The first is just a handy dandy Scrub Mommy. These work great. You know I love to clean with these if you watch the channel. I like the Scrub Mommy here over the Scrub Daddy sometimes just because the foam side just is a little flexible, can help get into some of those nooks and crannies. The other thing that I always say when it comes to using a Scrub Daddy, Scrub Mommy, really anything with the flex texture, is make sure to always warm it up with some warm water. That way it gets nice and soft and moldable and just is as gentle as possible so it won't cause scratching and damage. Now the other thing I also like to recommend is just a simple scrub brush or a handy dandy old toothbrush. These work great, especially if you have those ledges on your cabinets that are a little dirty, like in the corner and things. These will scrub that up and keep them looking great. Now I know some people like to use a spray bottle, mix up their cleaner in here, and then spray that on the cabinets instead of using a bucket system. And personally, I just don't love that just because many times you end up spraying too much cleaner down. Also, you add too much water to the surface of the wood, and in my experience, you just run into some issues with streaking and things. So that's why I opt to use the bucket system. But I will say one thing to keep in mind when you do this is you always want to make sure that your water stays clean. If you notice that the cleaning solution water or even the rinsing water is starting to get a little dirty, has to float around in there, it's time to change it. Because if you don't do this, you're pretty much just spreading dirty water evenly across the surface and defeating the whole purpose of even cleaning your cabinets. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too, if you kind of clean a really dirty area and you notice that your towels are starting to get full of dirt and grime, change these out as well, get a new one and keep cleaning. After a long day of cleaning, sometimes the last question I want to answer is, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? And that's where today's video sponsor, HelloFresh, comes in super handy. I get to cook real food with my family without having to go to the grocery store because everything shows right up to my doorstep. Now, I have tried other meal kit options in the past, but usually they're pretty limited, like around 30 to 40 recipes to choose from. But what I really like about HelloFresh is they have over 100+ recipes, so that means the entire family can find something we like. I also really like that it's flexible. I can pause, skip weeks, or swap meals. There's no commitment and no pressure. And most recipes take about 30 minutes or less to make, which I love, again, especially after a long day of cleaning. And in my experience, it's usually faster than delivery. So if you're looking for an easy answer to the age-old question, what's for dinner tonight? Use my code CleanThatUpFM at HelloFresh.com for 10 free meals plus free shipping. Free meals applied as discount on first box, new or returning subscribers only, varies by plan. Sign up today, click the link below, or use my code CleanThatUpFM at HelloFresh.com. Now let's get back to cleaning. Now, in my experience of cleaning a ton of kitchen cabinets, there's usually always one that is the most greasy and dirty. And you might have guessed it already, but that's the one above your oven and hood range. Now, sometimes the Murphy oil can do a good job to cut through that. Other times, if it's pretty bad, you might need something a little stronger to really break down all that grease and grime. And I like to suggest using a degreaser. Now, the one I like to recommend is just simple Dawn dish soap, not the other fancy kinds, just the basic blue Dawn, because this is gonna do a great job to break that down. What I like to do is just add a little bit of Dawn to a warmed up Scrub Mommy and then give that area a really good scrub. Now, you don't have to scrub too hard here. Just let the Dawn do the work of breaking down all the grease and grime. Now, once you feel like it's nice and clean, then always come through, rinse it really well, and make sure to dry the surface. Now, you might be wondering, why don't we just use Dawn to clean all of the cabinets? And in my experience, repeated use of Dawn on wood surfaces has the tendency to kind of dry things out and can potentially cause damage, and we don't want that. So I really only use it when I need it on these specialty cases and on those areas that have a really bad grease and grime buildup. Now, if you do have painted cabinets at home, Dawn is my absolute favorite. It does an amazing job. In fact, I have a full video linked down below. Definitely check that out. When it comes to cleaning the inside of the cabinets, I like to start by emptying everything out. Now, one word of caution, speaking from experience here, it's usually a good idea to start with one cabinet at a time, because if you just grab everything and move it all out of the cabinets all at once, it kind of just becomes a chaotic mess. I get super overwhelmed and it's just a lot to do, and you kind of just don't even have any counter space and things. So usually one at a time, then move to the next. Now, for the cleaning process, like I mentioned, we're gonna do the same thing we did for the outside of the cabinets. We're gonna dust first and then use our 3-towel system. 1 towel to clean, 1 towel to rinse, and then the last towel to dry and buff and make sure everything is streak free. Now, when it comes to putting all of your stuff back in the cabinet, I also like to take a few minutes here and just go through the things, because many times I find something that I'm like, why is this in here? Maybe it's the wrong place, so I can put it in the other cabinet that it's supposed to be in, or maybe even you find something that you just don't use anymore. It can be donated, and sometimes you even find some trash that you're like, this is garbage, so get rid of it. And that way too, you're kind of organizing and cleaning at the same time. I will say taking everything out of your cabinets and cleaning the inside is a very big job. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or maybe you just feel like you don't have the time to do this, that's okay. You don't have to. What I like to recommend is just focus on those high use cabinets that you're opening every single day, because usually those are the most dirty. When it comes to cleaning the inside of the drawers, it's pretty much the same process that we use for the inside of the cabinets, but I do like to mention 2 special tips that just make it a little easier. The first is when you're emptying everything out, I like to put that stuff into a plastic tote. That way everything is self-contained and nice and tidy in my workstation. Now, the second thing is instead of using the Swiffer, I like to use a vacuum with a brush attachment because many times I find crumbs and things in the drawer, and this is just an easier way to completely remove that. Now, once everything is nice and clean with the 3-towel system, I put it back in, make sure it's all tidy, and get rid of anything I don't need. Now, there's one area I haven't talked about yet, but that's because not everyone has this, and that is cleaning the tops of the kitchen cabinets. Now, pretty much I use the same process that we used throughout this entire video of dust, clean, rinse, and dry. However, sometimes on the top of your cabinet, it just gets really greasy and grimy up there, so you might need a little extra scrubbing power. Many times I'll just grab a scrub mommy and give everything a really good scrub as well. That way I can completely lift all of that grease and grime that's been sitting up there for a while. Now, once everything is nice and clean, a quick pro tip and hack that works amazing is just grab some parchment paper, old newspaper, or even some paper towel and lay that down. That way the dust falls on there and you can easily remove that and replace it so you don't have to clean it again. And there you have it. Now you know the best way to clean your wood kitchen cabinets. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're new here, consider subscribing and smash that like button. I also need to give a huge shout out and thank you to all the Clean Squad members over on Patreon and here on YouTube memberships. Thanks again for all the support. We could not make these videos without you. Now, if you want to join the Clean Squad and get your name credited down below, all you have to do is follow the link down below for Patreon or click the join button right here on YouTube memberships. And as I always say, I'll see you on the next Clean.